Good evening and welcome to this evening's meeting of Planning and Highways Committee of Thatcham Town Council on Tuesday the 13th of June 2023. And I have to inform you that this meeting is being recorded for publication on the Thatcham Town Council YouTube channel. And if you're watching on the Thatcham Town Council YouTube channel, you probably already know that. Okay, so on the agenda, moving on to the agenda, item 1, Madam Deputy Clerk, apologies.
Apologies, Chairman, from Councillor Jeff Brooks and Justin Pennington.
Thank you. Declarations of interest.
Yes, interest in agenda item number 8, 13 to 15 High Street.
Right. And I'm guessing that is not pecuniary, doesn't it? So it doesn't affect your ability. You're participating in the meeting, just for the record. Okay, anything else? I don't think. No. So then moving on to agenda item 3, the minutes of the last meeting. Does anybody have any comments on the on those minutes? Which are quite lengthy. But partly because we submitted 2 sets of detailed objections to planning applications last time. So, and if there are no comments, then I'll propose from the chair that we what's the wording, to confirm as accurate the minutes of that meeting. Is there a seconder for that?
I will second that.
Thank you. And those in favour? Thank you very much. So those are approved, and I will sign all of those pages at the end, so we don't wait too long. Matters arising from the previous minutes.
Nothing from me, Chairman.
Okay, so one small item from me, that's the planning application for Hambridge Lakes. Since we approved our objections at the meeting, I've done some research and discovered that, well, firstly, if you remember that the argument was that it was outside of the settlement boundary, therefore it was rural. So the first point is that the settlement boundary is defined for housing. And if you recall, the applicant was very firm that this was not housing. So I've done some research and discovered that there is, I think the country is divided into small areas called output areas. This is done by the National Audit Office for census data and so on. And there are 10 categories from very urban to very rural. And that area falls in the category, which is one of the categories that is urban. So I will be writing a personal, it's a fairly technical thing. So I will be writing personal objections to complement and supplement the town council's objections. And I will probably bring that to the next meeting for endorsement, because that will then mean I can speak to it if it goes to planning, but it will go to, it will be called, it has already been called in by one of the local councillors to be heard by the planning committee rather than by officers. So we'll have an opportunity to address that meeting, and it's useful for me to say that this is a council view rather, but I won't, I'll do it as endorsing that position, because I don't really want to get into this detailed discussion of the National Audit Office in planning. So that will come back in the next meeting, I hope. So that is matters arising. So Malham Road parking issues.
Yes, this was raised on the meeting on the 4th of April, where residents and attendants had some concerns about parking issues by taxis in Malham Road, which were obstructing driveways. Yeah. So there were 2 questions that Thatcham Town Council put to West Berkshire Council, which was whether the road was suitable for permit parking. The residents didn't want yellow lines, and West Berkshire Council have advised that it's not suitable for permit parking because there's already off-road parking available, so it doesn't meet that policy. And we also contacted licensing to find out whether there were any conditions on taxis when their permits are given, and it came back that there were no conditions in place on taxis.
That's because the part of the obstruction was taxis being parked and not in use.
So taxis are entitled to park wherever when they're not in use on the public highway. So
The not cross driveway.
No, this was
That's
the
Oh,
opposite side of the road, but because of the width of the driveway, the resident couldn't turn to get out.
Oh, yeah, I can understand that.
So
Okay.
I've responded to the resident.
Yeah.
I think my staff council have, so I think they can speak with them.
Right. So we had at the Broadway surgery, we had some further comments on parking issues.
Yeah, I've got notes of that.
That's okay. Not for here, so but anyway, those will be addressed. Anyway, so that's that one. Pavement issues, Whybrow Court. This is another long-standing issue. So, what would you like to?
So I think it's
Yeah.
actually on our outstanding highways matters, but it was a separate thing that we contacted.
Shall I explain the background
You
to
can
this?
do,
Okay,
yeah.
so some time ago, probably more than a year ago, we were asked to comment by West Berkshire Council on a scheme for improvements on the A4 around Crown Mead. Basically removing the central, in order to get a cycle lane, remove the central island and have a single traffic light crossing both carriageways at the same time, and extending the cycleways as far as Beverley Close and to Park Lane. And we had previously, one former councillor Woodhams had raised concerns on behalf of a resident about an entrance into a small cul-de-sac called Whybrow Court, where the pavement is very uneven and people in wheelchairs couldn't navigate across. So we had a site meeting there with the traffic officer, and it was agreed that this would be included in that scheme, but the scheme hasn't happened yet. So the letter in item 6 is the response to that. Would you like to address to you? Would you like to introduce that?
So I queried what the status was with Whybrow Court and active plans for Crown Mead, and they've come back with our intention remains to address the access and drainage channel related problems here as part of the A4 Crown Mead active travel proposals. The overall Crown Mead scheme proposals have been further revised to take account of local feedback, including from the Town Council. The proposals still incorporate works to overcome the problems with the legacy drainage channel, either side of Whybrow Court. We are continuing to pursue 2 utility companies for quotations for modifications to utility infrastructure that would be required to enable construction of the Crown Mead scheme. Subject to the above quotations being received, my colleague in our projects team is aiming to complete design work on the wider Crown Mead scheme by end June 2023, after which we will seek further discussion with Ward and Town Council representatives on the scheme.
Thank you. So I guess the positive news is that West Berkshire Council is progressing it and the delay is outside of their control. But we are hopeful it will actually happen soon. Fun on the A4 for a few days. Okay. Agenda item 7. Active travel press release, School Streets, Francis Baily School.
So there was a press release on the 23rd of May advising that there was some funding available has been allocated to West Berkshire Council to deliver a new school streets scheme and to develop improvements to walking and cycling routes, and this will include the introduction of a school street scheme at Francis Baily School. I did contact them if they've got any further information at this time, and there's nothing further at the moment, but it will probably be restricting access to some of the streets during a certain period of time in the mornings and so forth.
And the way the school street scheme, because that's unlike the school street scheme, that's a regular traffic regulation order, like there is, there's another school.
Yeah.
Anyway, we wait the details. I believe that the West Berkshire councillors don't know either what the details of it are. I wonder if the officers do either. Anyway, so we'll wait with hope.
So that's just a note.
Yeah, thank you. So moving on to the meat of the meeting, Agenda item 8, planning applications.
Right, so. So the first one we have tonight is 66 Burysbank Road. It is an application for a first floor dormer extension and ground floor porch extension. The property is set in quite a rural location on Burysbank Road. So it's off the main road. It's just down here. I zoom in. It's this property here. You can't really get a very good view of it all the way around, but it looks like the application is concerning this side of the property. So if I go back to here, to shrink things down. So yes, this is the plot. Can you see that over there? So that's their whole plot.
So that's called it's called the red line area, and that is the boundary of the property for which the application is being made.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, and these are the two areas where they're planning to make their alterations. So this is their new porch, and this is their proposed new dormer extension. So this is the existing drawings, and it's really just this side elevation there's any changes to. So there's already an existing window here, but they're looking to extend out and create a dormer that goes across here and then extend a porch this way. So you can see that clearer on this drawing here. So they've extended out there, and then they've added this door here and extended slightly that way for the porch.
So I just say here that I sort of sense the feeling of the room and the importance of the changes, and then sort of move to a proposal when I think we're probably, or suggest we might move to a proposal when we get to the point where I think we can see one way or another. And I'm moving towards that point on this one anyway already, because it's quite a small modification on a house that's not visible from.
It's not a lot. Yeah.
It's not visible. It's not a public road that it's on. Were there any objections to it?
No objections.
So
they're going to use pretty much things to match.
Yeah.
Materials to match.
So can I propose therefore that we make no objections to this? Thank you.
Seconded it.
Yeah, thank you. And those in favour of that, of course, if it's proposed and seconded, it has to go through because two people have already supported it. Anyway, number 2, Thatcham Central. I suspect that this is only requiring planning permission because it's in the conservation area. When you see the size of it, you will think.
So this is an application for a signboard outside the property. It's 13 to 15 the High Street. It's for a NHS physio sign on an aluminium projection from the wall. So this is a picture of how they envisage it being underneath the existing Bennington Green sign. So it'll be just there.
I presume you won't be underneath that because hopefully that sign it says acquired by, so that should be.
What's that sign?
That's the Bennington.
That's the Bennington sign.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny. It says acquired by and it's temporary. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So yeah. So basically, it's going to go about here, I suggest. It's going to be 2.5 meters from the ground to the base of the sign. Maximum height of lettering is 100 millimeters.
The sign's about that big.
Signs about that big. I can give you more details on the actual makeup of the sign if you want it.
Any comments? Can I suggest we make a move on? We make no objections to this one either.
No, we can't see anything. That's me.
Yeah. So I propose that we make no objections to this one and the seconder for that. I think that- I suggest we could help you do that because, yeah,
You've got something to do with it. Yeah.
Okay. So,
I was just giving you.
yeah, I think we'll give a turn later, but
Yeah.
just for form. Number 3, 85 Bath Road, Granny Annex. I'm not sure if this would normally come, it was on the borderline.
Yeah.
I asked for it to be put on because although it's a ground floor only extension, it's a very large one. And secondly, it is a granny annex, and there are 1 or 2 other properties on that side of Bath Road which have what appears to have once been granny annexes, which are now separate dwellings. So I thought it was worth us giving it a check. So I'll pass over to the Deputy Clerk to introduce this one.
So yes, you go. It's a mobile, it will make it work. So yeah, here's the location. Can you see that okay over there?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, quite a big plot anyway. This is the existing house, and this is the proposed extension to the west side of the rear of the property. So the proposal is for an extension to provide a granny annex to serve the existing house, and demolition of an existing greenhouse and garage to this side of the property, which I presume is so they can maintain access to the rear of the property. Looks like the proposal will pretty much double the length of the ground floor of the property, nearly. There was so the history of this property, there was an application for an extension back in 1986 for a double height extension to the rear, which was, I believe, this bit. And it created a 4th bedroom as well, with a study beneath at the time. It's now subsequently sort of like they've changed that into a living room now. So they're looking to make these alterations, so extend out to the back, and on both sides here. I can explain it a bit more with the plans. So it looks like they indicate that the granny annex will have access at several points to the main family. So you've got the porch here, and then you've got the 2 entrances to the place. So that's to the existing house, and then that's into the granny annex. But you'll also have access into the granny annex from here, and also through the living family quarters there. That's proposed.
Yeah, that's the point. It's quite well integrated, unlike others that we've seen. Yeah.
So the facing brickwork, and then there'll be plain tile hanging. There'll be plain roofing tiles. All other things will match existing. Highways have no ejections. This is the property here. So yeah, they're looking to get rid of that down there, and the extension will be to the side here.
There's quite a lot of room, isn't there?
So that's, and looking at, there's quite a few things sort of gone on in the back gardens of.
Do they need got the very long thing? What is that one out there?
That is Faircross Court, which is that was previously some sort of industrial premises, but that is actually a block of a terrace of houses there. That's a number of flats at the bottom, and then going up from that is a terrace of about 6 small houses.
Somebody had a large extension.
No. then behind that there are another. Yeah, that's actually. That photograph was taken before it was finished, obviously, but there are actually 4 houses at the end as well. I know that well.
Yeah.
I know the letterboxes very well.
So yeah, that's the rear of the property.
Do they need to declare the intention, whether it's intended for family or to be rented?
They have to, if they say it's a granny annex, they are effectively declaring it's not a separate dwelling. But as I say, there's at least one which was probably built as a granny annex, which is now operating as a separate dwelling. There's a rather one that the deputy clerk will remember on Gordon Road, where the house was extended to have 2 studies on the ground floor, and then strangely a couple of years later it was an application for modification to three dwellings. So that's why I raised in this one, and my gut feel is that this has the feel of being intended. They would need to get planning permission to change it to a separate dwelling in principle anyway. But this one appears to be a sincere granny annex rather than something else. Anyway, so if you're happy with that, can I propose that we make no objections to this one? To have a seconder. Thank you. Those in favour, thank you. Right. We come on to an interesting one. Shall I give the history on this one? Because this is a complicated, in that way it's not complicated, but it's an interesting history. So this, do you want to get a picture up? Yeah. Do you have a plan? Is probably the best one for this. So this is, if you know Bath Road, that we have that on the corner of Hannock Lane, we have that new development of it's 8 houses and 43 flats, which is called Francis Close, there on the corner. And then one along from that, you have then there's a house, and this application refers to the 2 properties, the second and third properties there. You can see 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 5. And the application is to put 3 bungalows in the rear garden, which, as you can see, is extremely long.
Oh, yeah.
And if you could scroll up, you will then see that behind that you have Brownsfield Road, which is a road of basically identical bungalows. The whole road is same, pretty much the same design. So sorry, the access will be between the 2 houses. Okay, so the history of this is that there was an application made which Thatcham Town Council made no objection, which was refused by West Berkshire Council on a number of grounds. The applicant made a second application where he attempted to address the concerns raised in the first application. Thatcham Town Council made no objection, in fact made some positive comments, because in terms of, we're not against housing, we would like housing, the right sort of housing. Yeah. And this seems to be a relatively low density in keeping compared with what's immediately adjacent. So we made no objection and made a positive comments, and it was refused again by West Berkshire Council on 3 grounds, which we thought were fairly trivial ones. So the applicant then appealed to the planning inspectorate, and we discussed that, and we decided that we would support their appeal against West Berkshire Council. And I wrote a fairly long document giving the reasons on which we supported it, for both the principle of the application and commenting on some of the details that West Berkshire Council were being unduly picky about the conditions for drainage. And so while they weren't finalised, the normal practice in that case is to grant permission subject to agreement afterwards. So we wrote quite a lengthy submission to the planning inspectorate supporting the appeal. Yeah. Now that was probably the end of last year, I would guess, the beginning of this year. But anyway, it was that sort of period. We know that he has made that application. He has submitted that appeal, but it is not yet even registered on the portal of the planning inspectorate. So it's a long process. And although we haven't spoken to the applicant, we suspect that this application is an attempt to speed up the process, because if West Berkshire Council make no objections, it will be approved in 2 months probably. So we have already, well, do you want to explain this application and how it compares?
So in this application, they've resubmitted what they were planning on doing. but they've tried to address some of West Berkshire's concerns previously. This scheme has been revised. 3 bungalows have been moved away from the rear boundary by a further 800 millimetres. Plots 2 and 3 have been reduced in width by 300 millimetres, which has increased the gap between the properties. Outbuildings at the rear of 123 and 125 have been removed, and parking for 125 is now located at the rear of the property. And then this here, they've written in their covering letter, was the conclusion on planning merits, and what was that? So yeah, a pre-application inquiry was submitted to the council earlier this year, and this was their conclusion. It is an officer's informal view that the scheme is acceptable from design and neighbour amenity perspective, and as such complies with the policies of West Berkshire Core Strategy. Concerns relating to drainage remain. However, comments from the drainage engineer will be provided when available, and they've submitted quite an extensive supporting documentation with evidence of other things going on in the road as well.
Yeah, so as you can see, it's adjacent to that development and it's far below its go. Are there any objections to this application?
No.
So perhaps for completeness, good evening.
Sorry, I'm
That's
late
okay.
here.
So for completeness, there were 3 objections to the last application from residents in Barfield Road. And they were concerned about being overlooked by the development. But one feature of this development is that they are bungalows and they have a very low roof pitch, which means that you cannot add an extra room in the roof space. So I suspect that the typical resident is not familiar enough with the planning portal to read all the documents and understand that. So we considered that and decided that while we noted their concerns, we felt that they were addressed by the nature of the design. So we'll take that into account again, but I don't think that's a reason to refuse the proposal. The one other comment there is that I was deeply involved in the planning appeal for Lawrence's Lane, which one of the main issues was drainage. And for complicated reasons I won't explain here, I ended up giving an expert witness statement on drainage to the planning inspectorate. But in the process of that, I sort of learned the general principles of drainage, and I'm confident that a suitable scheme can be designed for this site, which will meet the requirements. And I think they've already submitted something, so it's one of the previous documents for the appeal, I believe. So I think if it's approved, it will be approved subject to conditions on drainage anyway. So do we have any questions on this? I'm going before I make a proposal.
So access is very much room for a car to get.
Oh yeah, it's
I'm not very good on directions.
it's probably
Well, they've got
So
a drive.
that's
yeah,
the
so yeah, it's basically taking the space between the houses, which is
There's a driveway.
already used for access. Amusingly, one of the objections to the last application was the noise of the cars, the impact of the noise of the cars going up the driveway on the residents of those 2 houses. Which, given that the houses are 12 metres away from the A4, seemed to be rather a overzealous concern. So anyway, so this, as I say, the history of it is that we have considered it 3 times. We made no objections twice on the application, and we supported the appeal. And therefore, my proposal is that for consistency, we support this application because it is consistent with the appeal that we supported, and it goes beyond the appeal in addressing some of the concerns of the council on the last application. So my proposal is it's unusual for us to support an application for residential development, but because we've taken that position on the appeal, I think it's appropriate to take a position on this application as well. So I propose that we support it and we attach the document that we submitted to the planning inspectorate for information to that support. And if you want to find it, it's quite a lengthy document, but the deputy clerk can circulate that out to anyone who's interested after the meeting. Thank you. Those in favour of that course of action, thank you very much. We will unusually support that application. So Councillor McCann, that just for note that we are supporting development of housing in Thatcham here.
Yes.
So we move on to item 5. I'll leave you to introduce this one. This going back to the more sort of regular applications.
Right. So this is an application for 39 Foxglove Way. The proposal is to convert the loft space with a rear dormer and alterations to the existing conservatory and part conversion of a garage. So they're looking to create a 4th bedroom and an ensuite in the loft and relocate the dining room into the conservatory and make it a more permanent structure. And then they're looking to convert some of the existing garage to form a utility space with access to the rear of the property, which seems to be through the garage and then through the utility.
It looks like this actually has a passageway to the rear of the property anyway.
I'm not sure.
But if you look at the plan there, you'll see, because the plan below is more detailed, but you've got, it looks like that, you've got that's down the bottom, you've got that goes there, yes. So I think because those other properties don't have any side access, I think that is probably
so yeah, this is the property here. So you think that the access is round the corner, do you think?
Yeah.
To the rear of that property, possibly.
Oh, it's actually the public.
Where's the public
footpath, I think. That's not them. Anyway.
So it's this property here. This is their garage. It's got space for one car here. Looking at the drawings, am I zooming in and out? So this is the existing elevations. So that's the front. It's really the back elevation we're probably addressing. So at the moment, that's where the conservatory is. And they currently consist of a living room, dining room, and a kitchen with the conservatory. Then their proposal is to form a dormer across the back and make the conservatory a more permanent structure there. Looks like with bifolds or patio doors to the side of it rather than to the front. And this will be the new dormer to the rear of the property. So going up to the top floor, we've got a bedroom, an ensuite, wardrobes, and then access to eaves space here. And then to the ground floor, don't know what this space is going to be. Was the dining room before, whether they're going to go across or something, I don't know. And then there's the dining room that's going in there, and then they've sort of halved the garage to make a utility, and then the access to the rear the property. All I can see at the moment would be through the garage, through the utility to the rear of the property. Now, I've had a look around. I can't see any actual dormer on any of these properties.
There's some Velux
There's
windows.
Velux windows around.
Which property is it that is?
This one here. So that's the side of the property there, and the gardens there. What else have I got here? So in March earlier this year, they applied for a certificate of lawfulness for doing this proposed conversion, which was refused because apparently, as a condition of the original development in 1995, it says, notwithstanding the provisions of the Town and Country Planning General Permitted Development Order, no additions or extensions to the dwelling shall be built or ancillary buildings or structures erected within the curtilage unless permission has been granted by the local planning authority on the application made for the purpose for the reason to prevent the overdevelopment of the site and to safeguard the amenities of the adjoining properties. Highways have been commented. They've said the number of bedrooms is proposed to increase from 3 to 4. West Berkshire Council's current residential car parking standards are set out in policy P1. This site is in zone 2, whereby both a 3 and 4 beds should be provided with 2.5 driveway car parking spaces. But as you can see at the moment, they don't have that, they just have the one.
Part of my concern is that they've currently got parking for one car and a garage, but they're proposing to lose half their garage. They're losing.
So the
They've, sorry.
right.
So Highways have requested a car parking plan to be submitted. Can a second driveway space be accommodated within the curtilage?
So the council, that council policy on parking does not count garages as part of the parking provision on the grounds that almost all garages, it's impossible to get a car in because it's sort of other things. So, and if you're not familiar with this area, you've got Cowslip Crescent, and you've got something going off to the left. That is a public footpath that goes towards the. I'm just going to work out where we are. That's going towards the centre of Thatcham. It's a quite a wide space with a tarmac path in the middle. So it's visible, there's quite a lot of visibility from the rear.
There was a comment from Public Rights of Way that path. They said that they have no impact on the footpath at that location.
I mean, that's no impact on the footpath itself, but I'm saying in terms of the visibility of the dormer, it is visible both from the road and from the footpath.
It's not like they've just taken 2 small dormers out of the roof. They actually want to put a whole big. Isn't it?
So,
makes it look like a proper third floor.
Yeah. Councillor McCann, you got
just so I can familiarise myself. I have seen a few almost full length rear extensions in the loft. Just because there's not one in that street doesn't mean to say it hasn't happened. But I'm pretty sure I've seen, if not full length, I'm pretty sure I've seen at least a 3/4 and stuff like that. So it was more about, has the principle already been set and they're really just following it?
So certainly I've seen them around the town, but as I say, we can't see anything on this estate, and that's probably because of that covenant on the original development.
Enforce that.
That will obviously the West Berkshire Council knows about it, and that's why they've said that they refused the permitted development, because they knew that the covenant is a result of the planning condition on the original development.
So someone's got some bellocks here.
Yeah.
But in the area.
Just less of a visual impact.
And
change a bit.
And overlooking as well, because of it's more.
My concern is that if there's a big lump of a roof on the back of a roof, the conservatory extension, making a conservatory into a room, that's like for like. But I do have concerns about cutting half a garage, because you take half a garage away, it's no longer a garage. That's really as simple as that.
And it is very overlooking the rear gardens of
Those are my concerns.
Yeah. So obviously the last council, I had a good feel for what the individual members of the committee were likely to say. I have less insight with you, so that's why I'm sort of pausing to get the vibes. So I would say actually, first point is that if we were to make no objection, that should be subject to highways being satisfied. But because the highways issue is something we would always reinforce unless we thought it was unreasonable. But the question is, would you prefer to make no objection or to object on the grounds of overdevelopment and overlooking?
That would be the way that I would sway.
Can we have smaller, 2 dormers rather than?
Well, for the purposes of this, we have to make that, we can actually make a comment that I guess that were a future application to come forward, we would consider, we would not, well, it's tricky. I would prefer not to do that. They can come back.
Okay.
Because we also don't know what position the officers in West Berkshire Council would take. They may take a position which is more dogmatic. We don't want to sort of undermine them. So I'm getting the vibes that the feeling is that we are sort of minded to object to this application.
Because
So the loss of garage space, the loss of the insufficient parking, and the overdevelopment and overlooking, I think, are the 4. Yeah. And my gut feel from past is, I think it is quite likely that it will be refused by West Berkshire Council in any case. Thank you.
Did you want to?
So we got to, yeah, so we can, I propose that we object on those 4 grounds. I propose that as a seconder to that. So second, Councillor McCann, those in favour of that. You, thank you. Yeah, thank you. So that one, we will to object. Now we then have another slightly unusual application. So this is firstly adjacent parish, but when there's a major development close to the boundary, we get to review it. Now this is relating to the Racecourse development, and it is for approval of reserved matters. In other words, it's the details that either weren't provided when the original application was made, or modifications that they want to make, or details that they want to fill in. As such, I would suggest that normally we would make no objection. However, I'll mention one thing which I've looked at. So in the last council, the Environmental Working Party had a project trying to get a circular cycle route from Thatcham to Greenham Common and back. And one of the routes would have needed to get through this development in some way. Now, so I looked at whether we could sort of sneak that into this proposal, but given that where the red line area is somewhere away from where we would actually need to get the access, I couldn't see and what drawings they've supplied, I couldn't see a way where we could legitimately insert that into our position. In a way which would have any influence. So unless anybody else has got any comment, and of course we're thinking primarily of the impact of the development on Thatcham rather than for the benefit of residents. So I think this will be Greenham Parish.
The application as it stands at the moment is it seeks reserved matters approval for 289 residential apartments across 10 blocks, including retail space, car parking, associated landscaping and necessary infrastructure for the Area A Eastern Development Area. So this bit's already been built. It's this section here of yeah, so as you can see, that's already been built. Then that's going in that section. And yeah, matters to be considered are appearance, landscaping, layout and scale. So it was previously, the reserved matters on a previously approved application from 2009. And this looks like the next stage of the application.
What is the driving access to that? Is it one of those where they will have to cross?
It's over the bridge.
It's over the
Over the bridge from Hambridge Road, yeah.
Well, that's a lot more traffic.
Yeah, but
dwellings.
yeah, but that principle has already been agreed.
Right.
So the number of houses has basically been agreed. This is filling in the details around the characteristics, possibly the layout of the houses, but the application for the houses themselves has already been granted.
Right.
So that's the existing there. And this is the site they're talking about.
Would you suggest about the areas, perhaps when we're talking about tweaking stuff?
Again, we could. I would guess that's I'm not sure if that's one of the reserve matters, but that's more to do with, it doesn't affect Thatcham in that sense, so it's.
We've been asked for our
Yeah,
opinions.
yeah,
do we
yeah.
think there should be
So,
a play area in
yeah.
there, some sort of
So,
facility.
yeah.
But we asked you to.
Yeah. So one of the other points, if you could see, if you stop there, you can see that that curved path that at the bottom of the map below, that curved path there, which connects to the path along the side, and that eventually goes on the east to the boundary, and then so we could say that we would like that path to be part of a provision of access for cycles from.
That makes sense.
And as far as play areas go, I'm not sure.
I couldn't see anything. in
It's
that
just-
one that suggested.
No, it's
But that lower wedge to lead itself quite nicely to pretty
Yeah.
clear just below that.
it may be that there's one somewhere else on the estate, because looking when it says blocks, that's probably fairly small flats for,
Yeah, it was 289
yeah,
residential
Yeah.
apartments, wasn't it? I don't know whether over here they've got some, but that
Yeah.
won't seem right amongst.
yeah.
We can also-
yeah. So I would suggest that we make no objection, but make observations.
Yeah.
The two observations are firstly that we would like that that path that crosses the curved path that crosses the south of the boundary, to the south of the housing, to be part of a route from the canal and from Thatcham. For cycles and public route for cycles and for pedestrians, and that we would like it to be confirmed that the development as a whole has adequate provision for play area for children, because it may be elsewhere. So
Yeah.
so we say that that the development taken as a whole, that there needs to be adequate play areas for children.
Are they going to be suitable for children?
Well, yes,
Unfortunately, that will be for us to decide whether that would be.
Yeah.
No, that would be.
yeah,
Yeah. It doesn't cause us any harm.
no, so yeah, we can try. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Not
Yeah.
just.
Yeah. So I propose that we make no objection, but with those two observations. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Lamb. Those in favour, thank you. So we will make no objections to that. So we then have three further applications. Now we have a written policy that small scale developments we don't consider formally in the meeting unless there has been an objection from a neighbour or requested by a member of the committee. And there are three. Have there been any objections to any of these?
I've got two.
Sorry, two, is it? Oh, it continues on. Sorry, yeah, it continues over the page. So
No.
no
representation,
objections, so we
no.
will just, if you're content, we will just note those two applications. Planning matters, to receive any planning matters arising since publication of the agenda.
Nothing from me, Chairman.
Thank you. So agenda item 10,
Yeah.
traffic.
There's no sign at the moment,
Where?
because theoretically we're supposed to be closed down between 2010 to 5:05 tonight, as well as.
Okay. So, yeah, well, so we do A for, I think we'll do item B, we'll do A first. Yeah. Yeah. So receive up any outstanding highway matters reported to West Berkshire Council.
So we've not had anything further that's been reported to them added to the thing, and I've not had any comments back on anything at the moment. We will be chasing on a few of
And the
those.
comments that were made on the surgery, those go to full council they first, or do we?
I've got them noted.
Right.
I'll see where they go.
Yeah.
They may be on next planning highway
Okay.
as well.
So the surgery last month, that I was just over a week ago, it is the season in which hedges grow. And there was also a number of concerns about parking, so they'll come back to the next meeting.
Can't remember whether. Looking at the old ones, you've probably noted that the road markings around the Garter Centre roundabout have been now white lined. So
I saw that.
yes, so I saw that only
Yeah.
a couple of weeks ago. So that's probably the latest update on that one. So that's been signed off now. It's
So they were
closed.
actually completely resurfacing Turnpike Road. They closed it for overnight for several nights.
Mm.
So,
Mhm.
90 manhole covers were a problem on that.
yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so if there's no developments there, we'll note that document if that's okay. And move on to 10B, the road closure for Station Road. Councillor Watts.
Well, I get on those signs.
Yeah.
So has it happened or, I mean, I went through just about
Right.
quarter to weeks of them. I know I got stuck, obviously, but there were crossings as well, I slightly late. But there aren't any plans at all now.
Right.
So I'm not quite sure whether it's still supposed to be happening or not. So I'm just gonna go, come back the one way.
I'm not aware. I've only had the notification that that would
Yeah.
happen. They don't tell us
Maybe they
whether
put
it's
them on-
completed.
Well, one of the things is that if they're going to need, they think they need a few days, they have to allow for the maximum that they might need. So or maybe that's
I don't know whether they did it yesterday.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah.
Go that way.
so. And I think you said it's a photograph showing that they finished work, but they hadn't actually over.
Oh, yeah, what they've done is, they've moved most of the signs that said the road was closed, but not when you nearly got to the station, so everybody was going a long way round, whereas the actual, the level was not open. So maybe they're trying to spot it.
Okay, so we'll note that item and then move on to 10C. Any other highways matters?
So we've had two further notifications of road closures. So the first one is Bowling Green Road, which will be closed on the 26th to the 30th of June. And the closure will be between its junction with Hennick Lane and its junction with Gordon Road. I think I actually found the. Is that still working?
So
Yeah.
this,
The day after the family, that's.
no, but in fact, but it's okay because it's but Bowling Green Road, it's the bit of Bowling Green Road that loops round to the left. So it's it's residential only route.
So that's the diversion route.
Yeah.
And it's the purpose of that closure is for BT to install ductwork within their infrastructure. Residential access will be maintained throughout, and blue light access will be permitted as well. So that's that one. And then I had another one, which is Ashmore Green Road. That will be closed on the 19th of June from the hours of 9:30 to 3:30.
It's the same people that were doing.
It's a rather longer detour.
Yeah, the closure is from its junction with Hennick Close to Bowling Green Road. The closure is to enable Volker Highways to carry out permanent carriageway repairs on behalf of West Berkshire Council. Access for buses will be maintained. Diversion will be on site. And that's.
Not sure what buses use Ashmore. Ashmore Green Road, it may be a school bus, but I can't imagine anything else does.
So the
Yeah.
diversion
Yeah.
is all the way around. So that's that
But
one.
that is in fact outside of Thatcham anyway.
Yeah, it is. I only popped it on because it is
Yeah.
literally on the cusp
Yeah.
of people travelling there.
Well, the diversion is one direction, it's in Thatcham Parish because the boundaries are not in the middle of the road. So, thank you for that one. Reports from town council appointees to outside bodies.
You've moved to 12. Need 11.
Decision notices. Decision notices.
Okay. So these are the decision notices that have come
So
through.
this is reports back from West Berkshire Council on their decisions on planning applications that with Thatcham.
So where are we? So the first one council didn't consider because it was a single story side extension, and it's had approval. Don't think the second one was considered. Foxglove House, there were no objections from Thatcham Town Council, and that's been approved. 23 Goose Green Way, that was proposed first floor side extension. Thatcham Town Council had no objections, subject to Highways approval of the parking provision, and they've approved that one to go through. 78 Bank Road was a single storey side extension which wasn't considered by Thatcham Town Council, and it's been approved. And then land adjacent to 9 London Road was a new dwelling with associated access. There were no objections from the Town Council, and that's been approved.
Very good track record.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
So, and move on to the final agenda item, reports from town council appointees to outside bodies.
I've received nothing further on that one.
I think we do need to get a report because we have the development, the drainage scheme for the Memorial Field, which includes taking part of the cricket pitch, which Thatcham Town Council owns. And there was a site meeting which we didn't learn about until after it had happened.
I've got from the previous minutes, it was reported back that the next meeting of the flood forum and so forth would be on the 18th of July, so I would imagine we'll get some feedback.
Okay.
But I will contact them in the meantime, so there's something there with it to tell us about.
That's a question just for the report. Will the report have how long that work's likely to take and when it's likely to start?
So that's difficult because the flood forum is a sort of consultee. It's not responsible for that, so they did learn about it, and only at short notice, but they learned about that site meeting. But because we are the a landowner of an affected landowner, I think we ought to be asking to receive a presentation, as we didn't get invited to the site. That would probably go to RNA because they are it's a facility. The town, but I think we've got.
Otherwise, if they don't ask us for permission to do it, they can't just come across and start digging up the ground. So they don't ask.
So the agenda for RNA went. RNA was no. The agenda for RNA went out today. So, but I would probably find a way of.
I'll
Speak to Mel and see if we can say from the.
But as a chair, we can always insert something and say we want this information. So
Yeah.
we can.
We
can hang it on something.
Yeah.
If we need to.
Yeah.
I think that would not be unreasonable for the planning committee to be at least shown that before.
Well, we'll see it when it gets to planning application automatically. But I just like to. Is that as a landowner? I think we ought to see it at an earlier stage than planning.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you could check with the clerk whether she prefer that to go to RNA or as a report under that report on the two flood management bodies.
Because it will also have a financial income if the cricket pitch is knocked out for 6 weeks or 8 weeks.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't just affect us.
Yeah.
It has.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
Before we.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So with that, we come to the end of the agenda, and with that, the meeting is closed. Thank you very much for your attendance.
My apologies for being late. I get stuck in traffic, but
Yeah.